What's up, War Rapport family? I am your host, C Dub. Tonight, we take a look at Auburn's passing attack over the years. And in this new era of the Hugh Freeze being at Auburn, we ask you guys, who's going to be Auburn's leading receiver? And what will this passing attack look like moving forward? We ask these things and more in the latest edition of the Midweek Rapport. War Eagle, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of the Midweek Rapport. I'm joined by Mike G. We are sponsored by auburnsports.com. Shout out to those guys for sponsoring us and being a huge supporter. Day ones, as a matter of fact, of the War Rapport.
Yeah.
Shout out to JG Tate. Shout out to you guys for hanging out with us. We need you to do us a quick favor. Share this content, guys, on social media so people can join in on the discussion, help us grow this community. Also, hit that like button for the algorithm and subscribe to our channel and help us grow and expand in that regard as well. Also, you need to become a member because there's no such thing as the off season at the War Report. So we have tons of dope stuff. Mike G is about to tell you about all about it.
Listen, guys, 10,000 subscribers is what we hit. Now we need 10,000 patrons, baby. Let's go. We can do this. We just have a lot more to go. So help us get to 10,000 patrons, $5.99 a month. This is a great way to support our content. You can also help us by gifting a membership. So if you look for that gifted membership button, you'll see we're out there to help somebody else get the gift of the War Rapport by gifting a membership. These are chosen at random. So if you interact with our channel at a high level, but you haven't subscribed yet as a patron, you're more likely to be on the receiving end of this. As is customary, we're giving something away, guys. Hashtag get your weight up. This is sponsored by War Eagle Oil. So we're going to give away this very, very orange War Rapport Get Your Weight Up t-shirt in honor of it being spring practice. Lots of people will be getting their weight up this spring. You can too. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments. We're going to pull somewhere around the hour mark. But you got to be here to win. So don't miss that. Also want to shout out our sponsor, Rogue Shop. Use code Rapport to get 15% off that Rogue Shop order. Stress, sleep, pain, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something to help you out. Personally, I like the candle Caesar, but I'm waiting on the testimonials to come in for people who are ordering these candles and telling me I'm right. So visit therogueshop.com. Great way to support our content is by supporting our sponsors.
Man, we got a fun show today. Before we get into it, Otis Smith jumps in, Cam Brown, Coy Moore, the 6'6" giant from Cincy, all three plus a standout tight end with, what's that? Four horsemen.
Yeah. Like that part. Like a typo. Yeah, but I think he thinks that there are four guys here that are going to ride in like the four horsemen of the apocalypse and wreck stuff. We need an actual apocalypse though.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, man. That's an X-Men reference. But we need somebody to be apocalypse in that wide receiver room. We don't need the four horsemen. We need the actual apocalypse in that wide receiver room. So we're going to talk about who that could possibly be.
Hey, man, I want them all. Let's just bring it all. They just wreck carnage for that's the wreck carnage for secondaries in the SEC. I'm here for it. It's going to be a fun topic, man, because we're going to kind of give you guys a history lesson. And kind of take a look at what Auburn has done over the past few years. Now, again, some of you may have PTSD. We're not trying to trigger you guys, but what I do want to do is just kind of give some perspective in terms of what we can expect. What are the reasonable expectations for this passing attack? Based on what Hugh Freeze has done, based on what Auburn has done.
Right.
So let's take a look at
Well,
that.
before we get into this, right, I just want to I want to preface this segment, Caesar, by saying this has been a bugaboo at Auburn for a long time. It predates Harsin. It, to some extent, it predates Gus. Being able to get receivers in that are consistent, like landing big name receivers, has always been an issue at Auburn. And run heavy systems don't scream, "Hey, come to Auburn, we're going to throw you the ball a lot."
Right.
In my mind, I know people are going to say, "Oh, but he didn't do nothing when he went elsewhere." There's something about when you get a guy and he's highly rated, and then you ruin him on the front end, and then he goes other places and he can't get it going. But like guys like Nate Craig Myers, Kyle Davis, we had a group of receivers that was considered the best in the country by some scouting services. I think it was 2016. I think it was a 2016 class. Those guys were ridiculous. And they didn't do much at Auburn. And we just have to Hugh Freeze has to find a way to get Auburn on track in the passing game. We'll take a look at the numbers here, but this is something that it's got to be is they've got to solve this puzzle. They've got to solve this puzzle. So yeah, let's jump in and take a look at what the expectations are.
Well, let's go back to, and there's a reason why we're doing this. Let's look at 2019, and these stats are courtesy of Pro Football Focus. And we're going to look at what our receivers at Auburn did in 2019. This was the next to last year of the Gus Malzahn era. They are as follows. Of course, the leading receiver here was Seth Williams, followed by Anthony Schwartz, Eli Stove, Will Hastings, Sal Cannella. Some names may ring your bell there. Mike G, I mean, obviously we knew who the two guys were. And obviously, Eli Stove was used heavily in terms of kind of like a scat back speed sweep type of guy. But it was typically the two at the top. Seth Williams was the go-to receiver. Anthony Schwartz was a guy that was trying to take the top off with. What do you remember most about this group in 2019 in terms of how Gus was using these guys?
Listen, Seth Williams was clearly the go-to receiver on this squad. But you have to remember, they were catching balls from a guy who was 59% or 57% passing this year, throwing the football. So even the fact that we had an 800-yard receiver in this year is somewhat amazing. Anthony Schwartz, probably the most underutilized receiver ever to come through Auburn. 438 yards makes 0 sense for this cat. Come on, man. He should have had 3 or 4 catches of 60 yards or more alone. He should have 300. He should have 300 yards just in a few receptions, catching bombs from the quarterback. He was fast.
But we were also having some accuracy issues down the field, getting him the ball. He was able to get behind the defense at times. We just weren't able to deliver him the ball.
Right.
At times.
I can say that this group, from what I remember, didn't have a big issue with drops. If you threw the ball generally in their vicinity and it was catchable, I think it's fair to say they would catch it. So 2019, but also, and I kind of said, hey, the guy passing the ball was sub 60%, but he was also a true freshman. Right. So, that can't be understated as well, too. But you got one 800-yard receiver here and then a huge drop-off to the number 2 receiver.
Right.
A massive drop-off to the number 2 receiver. So 14 yards per reception is respectable. It's beyond respectable. And even for Schwartz, 10, that's the first time there's a first down every time he's catching the ball. So you throw these guys catchable balls, you should be able to move the ball down the field. And then Will Hastings, completely underrated. He caught some big passes as well, too, but only 222 yards receiving. Oh, my goodness.
I think the biggest disappointment here was Sal Cannella.
For sure.
Because of his size and because of what he presented to you in the red zone, the fact that he was underutilized as much as he was, criminal, Mike G. Criminal.
Eli Stove, solid receiver, man. This was a good group of receivers here. Yeah. Right? This was a good group of receivers here. So, I'm sure to say it's 2019 again. You're resetting. You got a brand new quarterback fresh out of high school. I'm not sure how big expectations were there, but let's take a look at the progression, I guess, to the next year.
All right, so let's take a look at 2020 to see how we look. This was the last, I think this was the COVID year, right? This was the last year of the Malzahn era. Let's see how they look. I mean, very top heavy. I mean, these were the usual suspects, right? So Seth Williams, Anthony Schwartz, Eli Stove again. Anthony Schwartz had a pretty big, he almost doubled his production this year.
Yeah. So Schwartz came up from being a 400-yard receiver to 635. Seth Williams, his production dropped off a little bit, although his yards per reception went up about 2 yards. So Schwartz was better, and he was almost 2 yards better in yards per reception, but 200 yards better. Seth Williams' touchdowns dropped off from 8 to 4. So Schwartz was more productive. Stove was more productive. But after that, I think Hastings graduated. He graduated. So John Samuel Shanker comes in, and I mean, what is that? Let's do some quick math here. That's 16. That's maybe 1,700 yards of receiving between your 1,800 yards of receiving between your top 3 receivers.
Right.
And they got to find a way to get to me, a great year would be around between 3,000 and 3,500 yards receiving total. But it's your leadoff guy has a lot to do with whether you can get there. So they got to find a way to get a guy near 1,000 yards receiving, in this group that we have coming in, which we'll talk about. But this was okay. This was improvement, I think, for some guys. But then there's a huge drop off after number 3.
And I think this is where the narrative began. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. This is where the narrative began to where Auburn doesn't have any receivers.
Yeah.
Remember when these guys left to go to the NFL, that was the narrative about Auburn. With Harsin coming in is Auburn has no one to throw the ball to. Statistically, when you look at it, you would think that, right? But again, this was a staff that did do a decent job of recruiting skill position players. They just got to give them opportunities to shine. And we saw some of these guys from this list step up in the following year. So let's talk about that following year.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Before we move on, again, for our guys listening on pod, I just want to read this off. Seth Williams was the number 1 receiver at 759 yards, followed by Anthony Schwartz, 635 yards, Eli Stove at 358, John Samuel Shanker at 97 yards, and everybody under him less than that, right? So you've got running backs down there.
Hanks in this list, 84 yards. Shedrick, 84 yards. Elijah Canyon, 80 yards. Capers, 77. Kobe at 70. McGee's at 57.
Yeah, listen, 100 targets for Seth Williams. 100 targets, and he caught 47 of them. 85 targets for Anthony Schwartz. He caught 54 of them. So he had a 63% catch rate. Eli Stove was catching 83% of everything that was thrown at him.
Mind you, a lot of that was coming on speed sweeps. They was doing that little pitch to him, little screens.
So 1 yard forward,
yeah. So that's a little context there with Stove.
For sure. So we can move on. I just wanted to make sure we said that out loud for our pod people.
For sure. In 2021, this is the year of the Harsin era. Now, I do want to make a note of this once I read out the stats, but Kobe Hudson obviously was the leading receiver with 580 yards, followed by Shed with 527, Demetrius Robinson, 489. John Samuel Shanker had 413 yards, Javaris Johnson, 274. Tank had 180, Sean Shivers, 166. Fromm at 93, Malcolm Johnson, 82, Luke Deal, 65.
Okay, so this was Bo's best year. This is a 3rd-year quarterback here.
Yeah.
And you can see how his improvement translated to improvement for the receivers here. Now, our top receiver again came back a little bit, but everybody else caught up because the ball was being more evenly distributed. So instead of having one guy with 100 targets, you had Kobe with 77, Shedrick with 68 targets, Demetrius Robinson with 64 targets, Shanker had 46 targets, Javaris Johnson had 36 targets, completely underutilized. Tank had 20 targets, Shiver had 23 targets. I mean, they spread the ball around a lot better. The touchdowns weren't there, but you've got guys catching. The catch rate went down, I think, for the guys at the top, but this was more evenly spread. So instead of what we said, like 1,600 yards or 1,700 yards, for your top 3 receivers here, you've got over 2,000 yards in receptions. Easy for your top 3 receivers.
Auburn averaged 240 pass yards a game that year.
Mm-hmm.
So just to keep that in perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it was an improvement. Now, those numbers aren't great. Those numbers aren't going to win you any offensive awards still. But for Auburn, it was an improvement, and they needed to find a way to build on that going into the next year. So, again, for our people listening on pod, Kobe Hudson was the leading receiver this year. This is Harson's second year as head coach, right?
First year.
I'm sorry, first year as head coach with 580 yards. Shedrick Jackson with 527. Shed had a problem with drops, and I feel like he could have easily been the leading receiver had he not dropped some of the balls that he did. Demetrius Robertson was another guy coming over from Georgia, that former 5-star that people had high hopes for. But it was an improvement. They were just trying to pick this passing game up off the floor, Caesar.
Yeah, for sure. We were more of an efficient passing offense this year, just because of more guys getting opportunities. We threw for over 3,000 yards. That does involve both Bo Nix and TJ Finley, who took over late in the season after Bo Nix's season-ending injury. 2022 kind of tanked.
And not because of Tank.
Not because of Tank.
Right.
No pun intended there.
All right.
But we all know what happened. But still, a lot of the ball was distributed amongst a lot of people. Javaris Johnson is your leading receiver this year, 493 yards, followed by Coy Moore, 314, Jarquez, 224, Shed, 217. John Samuel Shanker, 203 yards. Tank had 180. Camden Brown had 123. And then everyone else following had under 100 yards receiving total for the season.
Yeah.
Again, we know what happened here. Auburn got to a point where it just said, we're not throwing what pass plays in the playbook, right? We're just going to run, and run some more, right?
Now here's something I want to note for people. Look at the reduction in targets. I mean, we had guys near 100 targets, 80-something, 70-something targets. Nobody had more than 50 targets last year in the passing game. No more than 50 targets. And you've got a catch rate that is generally, for the wide receivers now, below 60%. So, they're catching less than 60% of the targets that they're getting. And your leading receiver has only 493 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Auburn threw for a little bit over 3,100 yards in Brian Harson's first year. Mm-hmm. Last year, they threw barely over 2,000 yards for the season.
1,000-yard drop-off. So, again, look at the production of the top 3 receivers now. Remember what we talked about. Combined first year that we looked at, it was around 1,700 yards. They got that up over 2,000. Now you're looking at barely 1,000 yards from your top 3 receivers, and one of them is a running back.
Yeah.
One of them is a running back.
Yeah.
So I just, I don't know. Jarquez Hunter, listen, if he's in your top 4 or 5 receivers, he better be having like a 500, 600, 700-yard receiving.
Facts.
Right, and still be near the bottom of that.
Facts.
Or Auburn's not having a good year in the passing game. You got to find a way to get the balls to the playmakers. Here, and those guys are at wide receiver. Those are your athletes, man. Those are your divas, man. Those are your Beyoncés on the football field. Those are the ones you're putting out front. Those are your lead singers, Caesar. And we're not giving them the ball. We're giving the mic to the backup singers in the passing game. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
So we saw how we've got here, and obviously there's nowhere else to go but up, right?
Yeah, you would think. I see Joe Kyle here saying context QB. Yes, 100%. It's hard to talk about the production here without talking about the QB position, but also not just the QB, Joe, the system in and of itself. I mean, if you think about how little they threw the ball over the last 4 games of last season, that brought everybody's targets down some. And, this is why system is so important. And what Philip Montgomery and Hugh Freeze are putting together, whether it's going to make sense and it's going to put guys in a position to make plays, because we haven't been doing that at a consistent level. Auburn has not been doing that at a consistent level over the last
Correct.
6 or 7 years.
Correct. And I think this is a system that is modern. I think this is an offense that is what kids want to play in coming out of high school. And I do think that Hugh Freeze and Philip Montgomery has done it at this level to where it gives us hope that Auburn's production in terms of passing yards, receiving yards will improve dramatically next year. I'm not saying we'll be amongst the elite, but we will be trending in the right direction. So to give us a kind of an idea and perspective, let's take a look at what Hugh Freeze did over that same time period. Now it's apples and oranges. I know he's at Liberty. He's in a different conference, different athletes. I'm not saying this is the exact same thing, but I just want us to look at what the targets. Mike G is going to point all this out, but I want us to just look at what has happened under Hugh Freeze at Liberty. Okay. So without further ado, let's look at 2019 Liberty wide receivers, courtesy of Pro Football Focus.
All right.
Mike G, they had a playmaker. Thank you.
Oh my God.
They had a playmaker.
138 targets, man. Do you think he
and they said, no, we will not throw it to anyone else. We're going to keep throwing it to this guy. He is going to take us to the promised land.
Oh my God. 138 targets. Now, the next guy had 46 targets and their top 10 receivers. See, what the hell, man? 138 targets. He caught 57% of all of those targets. But when you're getting the ball thrown at you that much, I assume there are going to be a lot of batted down balls, and you know what I mean. Some of them targets, sure. Not all these are going to be on him. So it doesn't mean he drops the ball 43% of the time. If you're watching this,
or
I didn't put
just well defended, or that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't put drop rate on here, but 17.7 yards per catch for his leading receiver, 1,300 yards. This is leading the SEC type numbers. If we can produce somebody like that, does Auburn have an Antonio Golden on the roster? Now, again, I just feel like if you throw the ball to one guy this much, the SEC defenses are going to catch on, and they're going to, all right, let's cover this guy. They throw at him a lot.
Now, Mike, let me ask you this. These are listed in terms of rank. I think that's very important that we point this out. This is listed in terms of rank, right? So based on what your grade was, determine where you fell in this rank. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's fair. Now, mind you, again, when you're looking at the perspective and context, when you're looking at targets, because there's no way to filter out like a minimum amount of targets. Here, generally, you're just looking at yards, the top 10, right, in terms of yards and targets and receptions. But, 138 targets, 79 receptions for their top receiver is just ridiculous.
Here's why I pointed that out, Mike, is because in year one at Liberty, they had a few QBs come in and throw, but Stephen Calvert was your starter.
That's right.
He alone threw for over 3,600 yards.
Oh.
Total, they threw 3,756 yards in terms of passing. So there's a lot of guys on this who probably aren't listed here, Mike, based on what you captured here. They had numbers as well. So a lot of people ate in this offense. It's just Antonio up here just had impressed enough people to get drafted the following year.
we have bonkers. When we get to our current roster of wide receivers, we'll talk about who that guy could possibly be. But
absolutely
not a bad start if you ask me. And I think, he was a dude. Now we've talked a lot about Ike and I, on the drops, and Brian and I are like, who is going to be the dude? And this wide receiver, that's a dude right there.
That's a dude.
We need one of those. I'm tweeting that at Hugh Freeze right now. We need one of these. Auburn needs one of these.
Facts. So the next year, bit of a drop off from the top guy, right?
Yeah.
Bit of a drop off, but it's a lot more balanced. We see DJ Stubbs coming in 523, followed by Jerome Jackson, a tight end, 75. But again, these are based on the grades, I'm assuming, Mike. Followed by CJ Yarborough, who had 268 yards. Demario Douglas had 363. Kevin Shea had 450. Noah Frith had 211. And again, it's distributed throughout. CJ Daniels down there, I see him 220. Other guys were under 100 yards receiving who are pictured here. But again, this is an offense that was still very productive. Liberty went 10-1 this year. Now the passing attack wasn't as potent as a year prior.
Who was the quarterback this year?
Malik Willis.
Okay, so
wasn't as potent, but there were much more of a balance. This was year one. Okay. This is more of a balanced team because their rushing attack took off this year. Just FYI.
Now, mind you, we're looking at a top 10 list of receivers for Liberty, and there's only one running back in here. Right? Auburn generally will have like almost all their running backs in the top 10 of the receiving list.
Right.
Because they're just not distributing the ball enough to enough wide receivers. So, again, numbers, I mean, this is more indicative of, like you said, of the direction that Liberty's offense went. He still produced a 500-yard receiver, a 400-yard receiver, a 300, a couple 200s, or 3 200s. But this was more about them being a run-heavy team. So when we talk about whether Auburn can be successful, now, mind you, it's at Liberty, and I mean, I think technically Liberty's an independent.
I think so.
They're independent. So this is a conference-less team in what is a rebuild year with a new quarterback. Right. So when we look at the next year's numbers, I think they'll be telling.
And I think Malik threw for over 2,200 yards at that year. So that's why the numbers kind of drop in the passing attack. New quarterback. New different style of attack. Let's look at what he did in 2021.
Right. So numbers went up for some guys, right? Yeah. So DeMario Douglas, 703 yards. Again, you see targets go up for these guys.
Apparently Malik caught a pass himself.
Right. Number 2 ranked receiver, Malik Willis, 100% catch rate.
Throwing dimes to himself, Pro Football Focus list. That's a joke. Clearly he didn't throw it to himself. But, I mean, again, CJ Daniels, again, 629, right behind DeMario Douglas. Kevin Shea, 516. DJ Stubbs, 342. Shedro Lewis, 202. So we see that the passing attack took a step forward.
Right.
So there is some development, it appears to be, Mike, in terms of passing with the QBs, would you say?
Yes, but they still got a dynamic running game as well because you have a running QB.
Correct.
So that has to be accounted for here. He sat in the pocket and threw the ball at a good rate. So guys still got to eat in this offense, at wide receiver. And again, I'm looking at your top 4 receivers, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't see any running backs. So you are getting the ball to your wide receivers.
And just to give you some context, especially with Malik Willis grading like that, Liberty had 7 different guys throw a pass. Many of them only threw one. So there was a lot of trickeration this year in terms of what they were doing, which is why Malik Willis showed up where he is. Also, Malik threw for over 2,800 yards that year. So there was a 600-yard improvement in year 2 under Malik Willis. And I believe this was the year that people were talking him up for the Heisman. This is obviously the year he went on to go get drafted in an NFL.
Right. So these numbers were good enough for a 3rd-round pick. And I just see opportunities for guys when I'm looking at these numbers. You've got a guy in CJ Daniels who had 60 targets, 37 receptions, 17 yards per catch. Multiple guys with over 10 yards per catch averages. Can we go, just before we go on, can we just jump back to 2022 Auburn? Let's jump back to 2022 Auburn. I just want to make a quick point.
2022 Auburn.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make a point here, right? About look at the targets. Look at how low the targets are across the board. And on this list, you've got 1, 2, 3 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
That's system.
Right. So system is going to be super important, I think, when we talk about what are Philip Montgomery and Hugh Freeze cooking up here. Because he's been asked repeatedly about what is your system, what is this going to look like? And they're still trying to figure that out. He wants people to know that they're still trying to figure it out. But a system will have a lot to do with what we see here.
And it goes without saying, this was a byproduct of a failed offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it got to a point to where throwing a halfback pass was us having to do something to get something going in the passing game. We
Right.
threw a lot of halfback screens. So that gives you an idea of also kind of why these numbers are kind of high for some of our running backs in terms of targets.
Well, don't be fooled by the yards per reception, right? Because you got guys 13, 17, 18. Robbie Ashford was stupid accurate throwing the ball down the field, but they had no short to intermediate passing game. Mm-hmm. So the yards per catch average, if that holds, but you can increase these other numbers on the intermediate passes, I think Auburn has a chance to have a very dynamic
That's going to be
season.
Very important under a Phil Montgomery offense for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So we can jump. We know we can jump back to Liberty.
Let's look at last year's Liberty's offense, shall we?
All right.
Almost had 1,000-yard receiver.
There goes that Demario Douglas guy again. He improved over 100 targets.
Now, what I think happened here is obviously this is the year after Malik, so your running threat isn't what it was in this year after Malik. So obviously you're leaning heavily to passing, but also you had multiple quarterbacks go down this year. You had Jonathan Bennett, who threw for over 15 yards, played in 12 games, it appears. Obviously, he was playing injured in some. Caden Salter, I believe, threw for over 1,000. So you end up throwing for over 2,600 yards this season amongst all the QBs that you had. But here you saw some of the production go up in some of your top guys, starting with Demario Douglas.
Right. So
112 targets.
Okay. Jump back to the year before, just real quick. Jump back to the year before. So 66 targets the year before, 703 yards at an 80% rate. Now jump forward. 112 targets, right? It's still around the same catch rate, but you see him almost hit 1,000 yards. And identifying your playmaker and being able to get the ball to your playmaker is something I want to see if Auburn can achieve in Hugh Freeze's offense. Who's going to be the dude? Because 3 out of the 4 years we looked at for Hugh Freeze, when you see these numbers, there's a dude. Right? There was a crazy guy, 1,300 yard, 1,400 yard guy in year one.
For sure.
In year two, it was what it was. But then you had Demario Douglas clearly step up and be the guy. Who's going to be that guy for Hugh Freeze this year? Is it going to be an incumbent? Or is it going to be one of the new guys? I have questions. I think that they need to identify who that's going to be.
Let's talk about that after the break. And I think that we can get the Rapport family. We're going to grab some comments too and talk amongst you guys, because I know you had a lot of opinions about what you saw as we went through a lot of graphics, but a lot of stats and information to get through. But we'll definitely talk about who that potential receiver can be in 2023. But you're watching the Midweek Report, brought to you by auburnsports.com. Guys, do us a favor, share this video, smash that like button, subscribe, help us get our numbers up. Help us get to 20K subscribers. Let's pause, pay some bills, and acknowledge our sponsors.
This edition of the War Report is made possible by our generous sponsors. AuburnSports.com. For news and notes on all things Auburn sports, head over to AuburnSports.com. Athletic Architects. For young athletes looking to secure their financial future, let Athletic Architects help you to build your financial house. Head over to buildthehouse.com. And our giveaway sponsor, War Eagle Oil. War Eagle Oil is your #1 place for all of your motor oil and related products. For more information, visit wareagleoil.com.
Hey, we want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, but we also need you guys to sign up as patron members. So sponsorships are important. So are patron memberships. This helps support our content in a very simple way, guys. We're out here putting a lot of content out. You can join the Green Name Gang by becoming a patron. We have some patron-only content. If you're watching some of these film reviews that Ike's doing, some of that stuff we reserve just for our patrons. So become a patron or give the gift of patronage to somebody in the community who has a black name but would like to join the green name gang, you can hit that gifted membership button. YouTube chooses somebody at random to receive that. We're giving away a t-shirt, hashtag get your weight up in the comments to get a get your weight up t-shirt. This shirt is super orange. We want you to bleed orange and blue, but wear it on your body too. You can do that by putting hashtag get your weight up in the comments. We're going to pull here in about 20 minutes to see who's going to win that. So make sure you get your spelling up. Don't want you to miss that. I want to give a shout out to Rogue Shop, our sponsor. Use code Rapport to get 15% off that Rogue Shop order, guys. Stress, sleep, anxiety, pain, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something to help you out. I love the candles. You can love them too. And then last but not least, again, I want to acknowledge our title sponsor, auburnsports.com. That's our guy, JG Tate. Please go over to auburnsports.com. Check them out. They've got recruiting news. They've got articles. They've got message boards. They've got a whole community over there for you to be a part of as well, too. He's been one of our day one sponsors. So please support them over there. We appreciate the work that they're doing.
Get it?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's grab some comments.
Yeah.
Otis Smith says then it's definitely Cam Brown. Cam Brown, when you speak of the apocalypse. So that's who he's going for in terms of disrupting some secondaries. Not a bad pick. And Robinson says, I say Jay Fair will be a surprise top 3 stat-wise, but leadership-wise, Cam Brown or Coy Moore. I like Coy Moore for a leader in the locker room. He's been very vocal. He's a vocal type of guy, so I can see that.
He came on our show and said, hey, man, I think we got 2,000-yard receivers in here. So let's see it, Coy. Are you going to be one of them? I hope so.
You better be one of them if you say, well, you know, you can big up your guys, but I'm gonna need you to be one of those guys with the bravado you flexing. So I'm gonna need you to be one of those dudes. Rick says, is King as in Landon King? Will he be a tight end or a receiver? I've heard he's been in the tight end room. I heard
system is going to have a lot to do with this. I'm telling you, they beefed up the wide receiver room, so it's going to be wherever they need the most help. And I've got questions about this. I think he's a playmaker.
When you were there, did you notice him where he was?
I did not. Brian may have. He's not on tonight, but there was a lot going on the field. The tight ends were with the receiver group, so we did see Rivaldo Fairweather blow by us like a tank. Right. It's going to be interesting to see how they use Landon King. I feel like I want people to remember he jumped in the portal, and then when Hugh Freeze got hired, he jumped back out. And so
one of the things is it became obvious, Mike, that the previous staff didn't know how to use this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Even when he got on the field, it was obvious and apparent he needed to stay on the field, but did not for whatever reason.
Right.
What I'm hoping is that under this staff, they're able to identify who are the guys who can make plays and build the offense around what they can do. So I'm curious to see what they do with guys like Landon King or whoever else begins to shine from the receiver room or the tight end room. So Thomas Jones with a super sticker here. Appreciate that. Thomas Jones says, if the War Report wants to hit 20K subscribers, please no more bad dad jokes from Mike G. Mike will explain. Listen.
He's been watching Locked On.
I saw you this morning.
I made an awesome dad joke. It was an awesome joke.
Mike, Thomas. I threw my new iPhone. Okay. I'm going to need you to stop. Okay. Before I have to go get a new iPhone.
You know, like old McDonald had a farm? Craig McDonald? Come on, man. That's
I mean, I face palmed on that one, but it was the ones after that. I was like,
okay.
Really, dude? Yeah,
I don't remember. I forget them as soon as I say them. So good thing they're on camera.
I'm sure you do forget them, Mike. They're very forgettable. Otis Smith says, "LOL." Seth had one play in my book, and it was the 19 Oregon game. Eli Stove was that dude that wasn't used the way he should have been. He wasn't used the way he should have been.
Yeah, good. He reminded his game. Reminded me of was it Ryan Davis, our all-time leading receptions guy?
Yeah.
You know, like
I remember Ryan. Yeah.
Stove reminded me of him. Chat, if I'm saying his name wrong,
they were. I think it was Ron Davis. I think they were trying to use him like that, but I think he was dealing with injuries and
he had an
whatnot,
ACL.
and just wasn't.
Two ACL tears, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
or two major leg injuries. Hopefully, thankfully he was able to finish his career at Auburn somewhat healthy. But Eli Stove was a dude. We just couldn't get him the ball enough, I think, and obviously health was an issue.
For sure. Beast Mode Stove says, eat, sleep, War Eagle, repeat, sitting in the sauna watching the War Report.
Hey, my guy.
Yeah, sounds like heaven. Enjoy your evening, sir. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Don't get that iPad wet.
Stuart Donald says, I am not asking for much this year, just a 1,000-yard passer, a 1,000-yard receiver, a 1,300 rusher, and a guy with 12 sacks.
So a solid season.
Sounds like a lot, Stuart, but hey, I'm with it.
I think Hugh Freeze would take a 3,000-yard passer in year one.
Certainly. We all would.
Right. So it'll be 200 yards better than the best year we've seen in a long time. So
since
I think Bo 2021 was like 2,800 yards or something like that. And he didn't even finish the season. So he would have been a 3,000-yard passer had he not got hurt versus Mississippi State.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. Hot Dog Water. Says Otis Smith, I like the idea of having that many passing yards, but what does that do to our running game?
It should open it up, believe it or not, because when you have real balance and you have to respect the pass, you cannot load the box against the run. So I don't think they're going to get away from the run, but It should make life a little easier for Jarquez Hunter and Damari Alston and Brian Battie and these guys back here who are going to be looking for holes instead of having to run against 8-9 man boxes because nobody respects the pass.
Right.
So, I think in a perfect world, every coach wants to achieve perfect balance where you just don't know what we're going to do. Like, when you have balance, the play action is dangerous because you don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, draws are dangerous. Play action is dangerous. Like you have the defense playing honest. They're not key. They can't key in on any one thing.
Yeah.
After the spring, I've compiled some stats that I want us to talk about. You will be surprised at how balanced Hugh Freeze's offenses have been
get ready for
at
it.
Liberty as well as at Ole Miss. He got a reputation for being a guy who's just fun and gun, throwing the ball everywhere, but you'll be surprised how sneaky he was at running the football. And that's based on what Mike G is alluding to right there. When you're looking for pass, it creates opportunities and rush lanes for your running backs.
Yeah, I mean, you can keep a defense off balance and then throw in a dynamic athlete at quarterback and watch out.
Yeah.
Right. Like Malik Willis. And that's why I think a lot of people were excited about Robbie Ashford potentially. Can he improve his passing game enough to be that dude at quarterback is what we're going to be watching for Robbie Ashford this spring.
Otis Smith says, I want orange face mask with our away unis.
Can Hugh Freeze have enough success at Auburn that we will legit talk about uniform changes? Because I'll tell you what, until you start pouring in natties, these old heads ain't trying to hear nothing about uniform changes. They almost lost their minds over the orange face mask on Halloween. So
I love the white face mask with the white uniforms though, but the orange would be kind of dope too.
You talking about the stormtroopers? Stormtroopers, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but that would be fire too. I ain't gonna lie. The orange face mask with the white uniforms, that would be kind of fire too. I ain't gonna lie to you there. So I like that idea for sure.
Kids want to see it.
Philip Coleman says Michael Riley Ducker will be a sleeper in this system. He is a good mismatch at tight end.
Here's the deal, right? Every year is a tight end, and we're like, oh my God, this tight end is going to be it. And then we don't hear from the tight end. Or they play the senior. So Fairweather is in, and he's getting a lot of.
I have a prediction.
Okay.
You're going to see some tight ends hit the portal.
I think so too.
You're going to see at least 2.
Because how are they going to play all these tight ends, man?
Yeah. I mean,
people
12 and 22 personnel is dead.
Right.
That's a thing of the past. Not under Phil Montgomery.
Yeah, 12 personnel. Oh, man. Come on, man. I don't want to see too much of that next year. I hope they get more creative than that. But the tight ends, I don't know. There's too many of them. Everybody wants to see Landon King. They're like, Fairweather, Michael Riley Ducker. I thought I read some crazy stat about him, Caesar, like he never dropped a pass in high school or something like that. Yeah, so it's just they're recruiting well, but you've got to find a way to get these guys the ball. Same as the conversation at receiver. Get on the ball, and is there enough ball to go around for all these tight ends? We'll see. But, system. What are they going to run?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're going to do something what Georgia did, but again, you don't have the coordinators or coaching staff to do that. So I just don't see how you get these guys involved and still be explosive offensively. I just don't see it based on what we've seen historically from these coaches.
Didn't it feel like everybody ate in that Georgia offense? Right?
Yeah.
Tight ends, receivers, it just felt running. I mean, it just didn't feel like, they were as close to balanced, I think, as you could be, right?
That's what I thought we were going to get with our past coach, but didn't work out that way.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, okay, yeah, for sure.
Erica Ratney says, how will Sean Jackson fit into the running back room this season?
I think that the bench needs to be warmed.
Ooh.
Now, somebody's got to sit on it. Sean Jackson's going to be on it. I hate to break it to people, but with Batee coming in and Alston and Cobb, and I seriously don't see a role for him.
The only role I could potentially see, but that could be occupied by a tight end, is the H-back position.
Yeah. Again, system. Like, are they going to try that hard? Is Sean Jackson a guy that you need to try that hard to get on the field?
There is an H-back in what Phil Montgomery likes to do. He's used an H-back before. I'm just curious who that guy is going to be. But again, you got the tight end room, you have the running back room that you can pull from to be that guy. I'm not sure if Sean Jackson is high on the list. I mean, there are other guys who come to mind, but that's the best shot I got at getting him on the field. But at running back, I think there's too many guys, too many dudes in front of him.
Yeah, we'll see.
So with that said, Mike, who's your guy out of the wide receiver room? We talked a lot of stats. We talked about what Auburn has done. Auburn is definitely primed for improvement in the passing game. I think we'll see it. To what degree remains to be seen. But who's going to be the face of an improved receiving core stat-wise in 2023, in your opinion?
Okay, so hear me out. I think it could be the new guy, Nick Martner.
Mike, you've been kind of all over the place with your receivers now.
Well, listen,
so Nick Martner has recently won you over.
Well, I mean, this is based on what I saw practice. He's big, and he should have. I'm interested to see what his catch radius is going to be, because Hugh Freeze answered a question specifically about catch radius, Caesar, and how important it is in this league. And depending on how accurate or not accurate the quarterbacks are, having a guy who can just go up and get up anything thrown near him might be super important. And he looks like he's got the build, he's got the make of that kind of guy. So with a new coach, there's like a reset. There's a reset that happens for everybody. Now, I believe Camden Brown will do well. You guys know I was big on Malcolm Johnson. He struggled with injuries during his time at Auburn. So I'm hoping that young man gets well. And he's a hard worker. He's a very hard worker. But the reality of college football is that, man, every game you sit out, every practice you sit out, there's somebody trying to take your job. And Auburn has brought in some guys, Coy Moore. I like Coy Moore as a experienced, senior type leader in this wide receiver room. There's talent there. But I just keep thinking about that guy who can be a possession receiver on a 3rd and 8, who will go over the middle and get you a tough catch, or will catch a back shoulder fade down the sideline. Nick Martner looks like that kind of guy to me. In the little that I saw in person, and we'll have another practice that we'll view on Monday, but he showed impressive body control, Caesar. Man, like, I think when a new coach comes in and they bring in these guys, they're not bringing them in to sit.
Right.
They're not bringing them in to sit. So if you are currently on this wide receiver roster and you think your spot is safe, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know there's talent in there. I know there's a lot of talent in there. I like Jay Fair, but we're talking about the dude. I got to think about a guy who can go and create space and make his own play and go up and grab a high point of football. Right. And I think that could be Nick Martner, or Jay Fair. No, I'm sorry, not Jay Fair. Camden Brown.
I like Camden Brown a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
than Martiner. I think Martiner is obviously your guy in the red zone. I think Martiner will eat in the red zone for no other reason than his size. I heard so many amazing stories of what Brown was doing. But I'm going to go with the leading receiver of last year. And something to make note of, and that's Javarius Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I think that guy is going to do really well in Hugh Freeze's offense because, again, this is an offense while you'll see some quick throws under Philip Montgomery, they still want to take the top off of defense. Who better at Auburn over the past few years who's been getting behind opposing team secondary than Javarius Johnson? Also, something to keep note of, in 3 of the 4 years that Hugh Freeze was at Liberty, his leading receiver was a slot guy, small guy. So Javarius Johnson, to me, fits that billing. This is his senior year. He wants to go out with a bang. I don't see him getting lost in this shuffle of new receivers. Again, I think Martiner will do well. I think Camden Brown does well. I think Jay Fair even does well. But you got a lot of guys, and I think the experience will rise to the top with Javarius Johnson. I still like him. He was forgotten about going into last year, if you recall. Yeah. We were big on Malcolm Johnson. We were big on a lot of other guys. And here was Javarius Johnson being that dude again.
Yeah.
So I'm going with Javarius Johnson here. But I do think Camden Brown shows us this year what we were hearing about the summer of the previous offseason going into last year.
Yeah, and I don't want to disrespect Javarius Johnson because he was a guy last year. Opportunities were limited for him, but he was definitely a dude last year. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. There's going to be – they have to create opportunities for all these guys. Mm-hmm. And as we've seen, 800-yard receivers for Hugh Freeze have been a thing. And a 1,000-yard receiver has not been a thing at Auburn for a very, very long time and well over a decade. Mm-hmm. So it's time for, somebody to emerge and for him to grow that part. I don't think there's anything more frustrating than having an offensive coach and offensive-minded coach and watching your team struggle offensively.
Right. I mean, it's the flip. It was reverse effect of seeing Chizik have defenses that just was water. Like right. I never understood that during the Chizik years, but go ahead.
But somehow they could score points.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see. This is something they have to solve. And then moving forward for recruiting, Caesar, show future recruits that if you come to Auburn, they're going to get you the ball. Absolutely. And they have a plan and they have a system that will utilize your talents and skills.
Your leading receiver, how many yards does the leading receiver need to get in year one?
800 yards.
Minimum.
800 yards.
Okay.
800 yards.
What if he doesn't get 800 yards, but we see a distribution of a lot of targets with a lot of guys? Would that help as well?
I will accept 3 700-yard receivers.
I don't see that as settling much, but hey,
I'll accept 3 700-yard receivers if that's the case. I need 3 guys, top 3 guys over 2,000 yards receiving. We looked at the numbers.
I'm actually with at the very least 700, but I'm with you with 800 though. I'm with you with 800. 800 says we're trending in the right direction. Now, something Kyle mentioned, QB play. How does that factor in to a guy getting at least 800 yards?
That is what the QB whisperer is going to have to take responsibility for. Okay. Now, everybody seems to want to have the year one, let them off the hook mentality when it comes to this. And I've never been in that boat. He touted 2 things: quarterback development and turning programs around quickly, right? What is quickly? Well, again, that can be subjective. Everybody's going to say, hey, that doesn't mean year one, Mike, they should be contending for the SEC. Well, shouldn't it? If the talent is there, if they recruited as well as everybody's been giving him credit for before they played it down, if you are preaching temper your expectations, then maybe pipe down on how you guys are talking about some of these this brand new O-line that everybody thinks is so well put together. Well, we don't know how they're going to play just yet.
Yeah.
You haven't seen them. Now, could it get worse than what it was? I seem to think that it can. Like, I don't, some of the guys disagree, but
I mean, listen, it can still be bad and be about the same, right? It could feel like it's worse because it's a repeat of what we saw, but to me, I think we hit the floor hard last year.
Yeah, it was
for no other reason than injuries.
Well, it's a mix of things, Caesar. I mean, a system.
Yeah.
Everybody around you is getting better too. This is something that doesn't get talked about enough. Matchups.
Sure.
The people who you're going up against, how did they get better? Based on what you're going to be putting your offense up against. I just feel like the QB position needs to improve to north of 60% completion percentage, which should not be a lot to ask for in this league. If you expect to have a decent year, because we were around 50. So 50 is rock bottom. And this is not one of those things where it was 50, so we should expect marginal improvement to 55. No. 60 should be if you're going to be a program that's going to give people a fight, 60% should be a minimum. Like what program do you know had a decent year with sub 60%?
Hugh Freeze has done it before.
Yeah, but it's just that should be the exception and not the rule. And all I'm saying is,
and it was the exception. I'm saying
right.
I understand your point. You can't make a living year after year doing that.
You certainly cannot. I don't expect to see that based on the current QB room we have next year, because it's the short to intermediate. It's the higher percentage passes that they need to improve, which is why I'm saying 60 should be, the expectation. 60 plus should be the expectation. You were connecting on a lot of your completions were downfield passes, which should have been low percentage throws, but they were completing them at a high percentage clip. Now we're saying, hey, it's probably more important. What's funny is in golf, we say this all the time, right? Everybody spends all their money on their driver, right? They go out, they buy the $400 driver to tee off from. But the truth is, all your money in golf is made around the greens with your putter.
Yeah.
Right? The 10-foot putt that people get on the green and then 6 putt because they can't putt. That's what it's like in football with these short to intermediate passes that they were missing on. And I expect whoever is Hugh Freeze's quarterback to improve significantly in that aspect, which should raise that completion percentage significantly.
I would also think you would see increased targets across the board. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna actually drop mine to 700. But I don't think that's a reflection of a lack of improvement, because you can actually go up in terms of total yards passing as well. So I think improved play may not necessarily mean that you have a guy get close to 1,000 yards or 800 yards. It's great if it does. I'll take it. Right. But I'm gonna start with 700 because, again, I'm still curious to see how this QB picture shakes out. I think there's a lot of unknowns there.
Sure. Listen, I'm cool with 700. Just give me 3 of them.
Times 3. Times 3 for Mike G.
Yeah,
Times 3 for Mike G.
So we'll see.
Let's grab some of these comments. You guys have been weighing in on your thoughts on who you think is going to be the dude in that wide receiver room. Corey Weber, great to have you with us. He says Amari Kelly.
Yeah, we keep forgetting about it. There's so much talent in this wide receiver room.
There's so much talent.
Yeah.
Listen,
a lot of talent.
I think there's a good chance I could be dead wrong with my pick.
Okay.
Same for Mike G. We just don't know because there's so many talented guys in this room. Steve Valentine says Jay Fair.
Love that pick as well, too. A good possession guy who can catch a short pass, juke 3 guys, and get upfield 8 yards. That's Jay Fair. We saw flashes of it. We just didn't get him the ball consistently. Nobody got the ball consistently enough last year. Yeah. So hopefully a guy like Jay Fair is only going to benefit from improving that category that I'm talking about in those short to intermediate passes. Right. They've got to be able to complete those at a higher clip than they did last year.
For sure. Oda Smith says Cam Brown. Not mad at that. Erica Radney says Martner, Omari Kelly, Brown. Those are the 3. Those are the top 3. Those are your 3 700-yard receivers there, Mike.
That could be a dangerous group.
Chris Sanders says, put me on the Martiner bandwagon. Hey,
if you haven't seen him, like when you see him next to the other receivers, you'll get it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just too big and like too tall. And I just can't remember. The last guy that we had to even look close to that, I think, was Sammy Coates. Big, tall, strong guy.
He was a good receiver for us, Mike. So you may be onto something. Otis Smith says 1,200 yards with his chest. Say it with his chest. Deal Look says 900. Not bad. Not bad. Otis Smith says with Phillip and Freeze, it's an easy 1,200. Yeah. Said it again. Double down with the 2 ball there.
Okay.
Greg Reed says, I'll say 801. Price right rules. I love it. I love it.
I like that. I
love it. Chess Rockwell says, shout out to Kendall Simmons on promotion to assistant O-line coach.
Love for O-line guys.
Simmons. I've heard great things about Kendall Simmons, so I'm great to see him get an opportunity to get moved up in his coaching. Players have spoke very well about Kendall Simmons, so big ups to him. Shout outs to him. Congrats. Good conversation on this, man. Listen, I do have questions about wide receiver. I'm curious if some of our receivers hit the portal.
Yeah, listen, the portal.
Because we're naming a lot of guys, Mike.
Yeah, it's coming, dude. It's coming. I mean, I'm glad they brought in as many guys because after spring, guys are going to want to go find other homes.
Yeah, for sure.
And we wish them luck. I mean, everybody can't play. Every good program has to deal with this issue.
Sure.
Pre and post spring now.
Sure. All right. Well, guys, we're about to do the giveaway. What are we giving away?
We're giving away a t-shirt. It's super orange, guys, because Auburn is super orange, and we want you to be super orange too. And it's t-shirt. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments. I'm going to be nicer than Ike and give y'all a few more seconds to get in here. But it is giveaway time, and we're not going to wait too long because we got other things to talk about.
Yes, we do.
So
let's do it.
Yeah, well, give me 50. Give me 50. Give me 2 more people in this piece, and I'll let it roll.
All right.
Really, guys?
All right.
Y'all gonna bring the Ike out of me.
This is what you get. This is what you get for being showing patience.
Let's let it roll.
Who's it gonna be?
Oh, Zachary Bowman.
Fool, I'm so sorry, man. It teased the crap out of you, sir.
Zachary, you got to be here to win, though. So shout us out in the comments, man. Let us know you're here, or we have to redraw.
Like I said, this is why I don't wait.
Yeah, listen, get your cranky ass out of here. He's in Nashville covering the tournament for us. So shout out to Ike, man. He'll be giving us some live info from the SEC.
For sure. That's a great experience. Enjoy up there, Ike. Definitely can't wait to get back and hear from you, your take on what you saw up there. But keep a lookout too for our winner, Zachary Bowman. Mike, I'm gonna be doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Let's talk ball, man. Let's talk some basketball.
Yep.
Auburn takes the floor again tomorrow against Arkansas. Has Auburn caught fire at the right time, or did they catch fire? Thoughts on that?
Okay, so I want to say yes. I want to say yes. I want to say, but what have we seen consistently from Auburn this season outside of defense? Defense has kept them in every single game.
Yeah,
right now. Right. Auburn got a nightmare draw in this bracket against Arkansas, and then if they beat Arkansas, they got to play A&M, and if they beat them, they're probably going to face Kentucky. Yikes, man. They really set this thing up for Bama to kind of, you know what I mean? I still think Missouri is going to surprise a lot of people in this tournament, but for Auburn,
I think so.
Yeah, I do. And I'll get to that later, but for Auburn, are they like, it's funny because I mean, there's no such thing as a 1-game streak, right? Like it was one game. It was a game they needed to make sure they got into the NCAA tournament. and they're in. I think almost every expert unanimously agrees that Auburn is into the tournament. But I think they have an opportunity to be very, very, very dangerous now that it's just one game. I mean, it is a tournament of one game every week from now here on out, right? Like, win the next game. And when you can play defense and limit scoring, you can have a chance in most games you're in, even when you're shooting poorly. So, to me, Wendell Green is the key. If he wakes up offensively, Auburn is going to be really, really hard to beat.
I just need him to be efficient. I just need him to be efficient, Mike.
If he's going to go 8 of 14 from the field, hit his free throws, and distribute the basketball like he did against Tennessee, Auburn's going to be a team nobody wants to see from here on out.
Yeah,
you know. Sure. But when he shoots 2 of 14
and 2 assists and 4 turnovers,
yikes, man! I just don't.
It's a long day. It's a long day.
Even when Jalen is having a good day offensively and Broome is having a good day offensively, we've seen that can not be enough for this team.
You need someone to show up from the backcourt or the perimeter, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have your guys Broome and Jalen Williams playing well in the front court, but you got to have a guy on the wing on your point guard who's giving you some buckets from outside, or at least facilitating and moving the offense. Right. So when Wendell is playing like that, the offense is stagnant for the most part.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough.
He has to be playing very well in this tournament. How far does Auburn go?
Oh, in the SEC tournament?
In the SEC tournament.
Oh, I got them winning it. Auburn versus Missouri for the final. Auburn versus Missouri for the final. Here's my reasoning. Bama, just the same way we're talking about Auburn getting hot at the right time. I think Bama is going to go cold at the wrong time.
Arguably, you can say they're already cold.
Yeah, 3-point shooting team. Live and die by the 3 teams have a tendency to just blow it at the wrong times. And I think throughout the history of basketball, we've seen this. When you rely so much on outside shooting as they do. Oh, now they're a pretty good defensive team as well. You might
perhaps.
Yeah, I'm bugging on this one. I just think the Kentucky result.
Hey, Chess, he's not on gummies yet, so we'll keep you posted on that.
Yeah, sans the Kentucky result. Nobody's run Auburn off the court, and if they can get on the right side of the offensive, they're going to be a really tough team to beat. Now, here's where I hate Auburn is that if it's close, they've consistently shown that they will find a way to blow it. And not close the game. If for some reason they can keep out of those end of game situations where they can, kind of like versus Tennessee, where they can go up and then just hold them off. I don't know, man. I think
Auburn has to be in control of the game.
Yeah, Auburn has a chance to, if Jalen Williams is emerging as a better scorer, it seems like every game. We know what Broome can do. Listen, Broome was 2 of 4 from 3 against Tennessee. And we got a chance to watch. Like, I saw that coming. I knew that was coming, right? With Broome shooting more threes. We saw Walker Kessler do it.
Yeah,
but it was something that he's been practicing. And
he's trying to get to the next level, Mike. And he understands that playing with my back to the basket might have got me a high draft pick 15 years ago.
Right.
But I got to be able to shoot the ball.
Yeah, and so they joked. I asked Wendell and Jalen about it after the Tennessee game. They joked about, hey, he told us in practice, he's like, listen, man, if it's open, I'm pulling it, guys. Right? So I thought that was fun. And he did. So if he's going to make those kind of plays, I think that they have a shot to do something special in this tournament. So this is going to be one of those things. I know it's going to sound crazy, and everybody's going to be like, oh, but that defies all logic. Yeah, sometimes some things defy logic, but that defines Auburn, does it not? 2019 defied logic, in basketball.
They are really they're really on you in the comments.
I don't care. You're not going to
really
listen.
on you in the
Y'all
comments,
are killing
sir.
my vibe. I woke up thankful for life today, and I'm not letting you guys kill my vibe. I'm booging on this one. I think that Auburn, if they get by Arkansas, watch out. And I'll tell you what, even though Texas A&M has had Auburn's number, nobody wants to play a team 3 times in 1 year.
Sure.
Advantage Auburn.
And they played them incredibly well on the road.
Yeah.
So I actually like Auburn in that game. I'm not gonna lie to you, Mike. I'm not gonna lie to you. Now Kentucky
scares me.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. Okay, all right.
But you can't win a championship without beating good teams.
Facts.
And I think that they have a shot to do that as well too. So I don't know, man. Like, listen, y'all could be on this hater train if you want to. But when Auburn wins it, I accept apologies in the form of cash apps. Lots of medical bills, guys. cash app me your apology. When Auburn wins it.
I need Janai. Again, we have been on the bad end of bad calls by the officiating.
Yeah,
we suffered for it. If Janai Broome is in foul trouble, because we talk about Wendell, but if the games where he's been in foul trouble, we've been a completely different team defensively, especially in the interior, right? And so I think if he's able to stay out of foul trouble, along with Wendell being efficient offensively, I'm willing to boog with you, Mike.
Okay.
But if Janai is in early foul trouble, because we know Dylan is not 100%. I heard he practiced.
Right.
Bruce Pearl mentioned that he practiced, but he hasn't been 100% throughout the season. He has not been himself compared to what he was like last year.
Right.
If Janai's in foul trouble, I don't like us in games.
Really quickly, it took him a little while, but he showed up. Zachary's here.
I saw him.
Yeah, he's here. So Zach, tell him what he can do, Caesar.
Because you can't see it. Congratulations. Email us business@thewar.report. We need your shirt size, or else you're getting a what, Mike?
Medium.
Okay, which means it won't fit. We need your correct shirt size as well as your physical address, and that shirt will be coming your way courtesy of War Eagle Oil. Congratulations. Thanks for watching the War Rapport.
Zach said he's been waiting for 2 years. 2 years. Congratulations, my friend, on the win.
Congrats. They tried to take it from you, but we saw you here, sir. So we saw you. But yeah, like again, I think Janai has. I mean, that's a tough ask, but he has to stay out of foul trouble. We saw what happened again when he's playing with 4 fouls. We see how teams can kind of eat on us in the interior.
Now, listen, I think there is a method to the madness with Bruce Pearl. He waited until the end of the season when it was most important to call out the refs about these calls.
Okay.
Don't complain too early, right? Because you don't want them to punish you too much. But at the end of the season, when it was most important, he got on his soapbox and he was like, listen, man, you remember that scene in Remember the Titans where he was like, you call this fair, or so help me God, I'll see every one of you thrown in jail. Yeah, that kind of vibe to me, right? And I think that if they're going to call the game evenly and allow Auburn to be physical, because it's not just about calling the game evenly. I think it's about allowing Auburn to be physical and not calling ticky-tack fouls.
Correct.
Auburn can run with anybody. But if they're going to call the game like they did most of the season, it's going to be really difficult for this team. Yeah. It's going to be really hard. The game
that sticks out to me is A&M, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, they just call
because Broome was on foul number 4, and dude for A&M was just eating in the interior. Yeah. Like they was able to get what they wanted because their shots wasn't falling in that game like it was over at Neville. So they were relying on their interior game, their points in the paint to beat us. And so it was just a rough night. If they can let us play our game to where we're not being soft in the paint,
Right.
I like our chances.
Yeah. Hey, listen, man. To win a championship, you can't be soft in the paint. You gotta go hard on the baseline.
Absolutely.
So if they can figure that out and just allow Auburn to play basketball, just a fair. I thought the Tennessee game, it wasn't perfect from the ref standpoint, but it was called fairly.
Right.
It was a fairly called game. Refs aren't perfect, but there was no, as the game was going on, I was like, few bad calls, but nothing that I could point at during the game to say that the refs are a factor so far.
Right.
When Auburn doesn't have to overcome the officiating this season in particular, because they've been on the line, I think they can come out on top.
I agree. And again, to your point, we've been in every game this season. So again, if the ticky-tack fouls don't occur, I do like our chances for sure, because we got guys who can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Bloodworth says, Mike, and I'm curious about this too. In your scenario, who actually beats Bama?
So glad you asked, Ben. Mississippi State. Mississippi State takes out Bama. I said it. Turn them like bubble team right now in Mississippi State. But Mississippi State, and if not, then Missouri.
They gave Bama a hard time. All they wanted. Yeah. That's not a bad pick. I like it. Neutral site. I like that pick, Mike.
Mm-hmm. I think Brandon Miller maybe he might have other worries now in this tournament. So, if his head's not in the game, maybe one of these teams sneaks one out on Bama. They're not unbeatable.
No, he's fine. His head will be in the game. They'll pat him down, and then he'll go out there and do whatever.
Texas A&M wanted to remind Bama, you and I are unbeatable that last game of the season. Bama fans will act like they didn't want it. They wanted that game. And they went out and they lost it. They're not unbeatable. I think Auburn showed that Brandon Miller can be defended. The ref still handed him 11 free throw attempts. But, but for the most part, I think it was 3 of 12 from the field versus Auburn.
Yeah.
So Auburn was their own undoing, if you ask me, in that game. I think Bama can be beat, and I think there are multiple teams that can do it.
Let's get to some more comments here. Lisa Daniel asks, where does Landon King land in this room?
Yeah, everybody keeps asking this, Lisa. And the answer might be the transfer portal.
Sheesh.
Because there was a lot. Like, everybody wants Michael Riley Ducker, and they want...
So Landon King pump faked and actually
maybe and then Fairweather, I just don't know, man.
I know Fairweather's going to be a part of this. Like, I'll be surprised if he's not.
Everybody every year we're talking about a tight end.
I really want Landon King to be a part of this offense, though. I really do, personally.
But without 12 personnel, I just don't know if there's enough ball to go around if you're going to play him at tight end. I don't know, man. I don't want to see. I think he's a really talented kid. And ideally, now I'm old school in this way. Caesar, I'm old school in this way. These young guys can sit for a year, wait your turn, play your senior guys, your junior and your senior guys, unless somebody is exceptional, truly exceptional. But like, I'm a big believer in development, and sometimes I think you just gotta take some time, catch up in the weight room, learn the system, get adjusted, acclimated to being in college.
Right.
Get focused. And I mean, that's the advantage to having seniors and guys who have been here and been through it. So I hope not. But the way they're talking about some of these guys, we'll see.
We should surely see. James Burnett says this wide receiver room is very underrated. People who doubt we are last in the SEC is going to be surprised. Mark this post. Just my opinion. I mean, again, this is we showed you the stats. This receiver room just did not get a lot of opportunities.
Yeah,
they could do. So I agree with this post. They are very underrated for no other reason that they haven't had a chance to show the world that they are legit. I think that changes under this new coaching staff, and we're going to see. We're going to see just how smart and brilliant you are, James, because we know it. Now the world needs to know it. Now, Joe Kyle says, good War Report show, guys. Always good to hear C-Dub step outside the moderator role.
Yeah.
No, they're making me earn my paycheck today. All right. I can be gone, no longer moderating. I'm talking. I'm a guy here.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mike?
No, man. Listen, this is For Auburn basketball, I guess my message to Auburn basketball here is leave it all on the court.
For sure.
Nobody expects you to do much, right? Everybody's talking about Bama. They're talking about Texas A&M. And when they're not talking about you is when you can go out and shock the world. Not many people talked about 2019 Auburn until after the SEC tournament. And they went out and they won that thing and then went on one of the greatest runs we've seen in college basketball history. Yes, in college basketball history. They beat the 3 winningest programs in college basketball history back to back to back. And with every game, an analyst picking Auburn to lose. The run ends here against North Carolina. Storied program. Oh, Kansas. How are they going to beat those guys? Kentucky, right? Class of the SEC, beat them all.
And the Kentucky game was scary because we just beat them for the SEC championship. So you knew they was wanting some get back.
Yeah, go out there and leave it all on the court, guys. Go out there and leave it all on the court.
For sure.
You know, don't leave a foul in the tank. Don't leave a shot. Don't leave nothing because there is no tomorrow, literally, when it comes to tournament play. You lose tomorrow. There's no tomorrow in the SEC tournament. There's no reason to hold back here unless you just want to lose and get some rest for the NCAA tournament. But other than that, right, I don't know. I don't know about that energy. I don't know about that having that losing energy going into the SEC, into the NCAA tournament. Go out there and just do what people don't expect you to do, man. There's always going to be detractors and people who say you can't do this and you can't do that. Auburn has a shot to really go out there and do something special because there may not be a Walker Kessler, a Jabari Smith, or Isaac Okoro or Shareef Cooper on this team. But I'll tell you what, this team has just as much heart as any of those teams had. They don't lack that. So they may not be the most talented, but sometimes you just need to be the hardest working and have the most heart. And I'll take a team that wins on heart just as much as talent. So that's what I'm counting. That's what I'm banking on. This is a boog pick for me, Caesar. This is all sunshine pump. I will admit it. It makes very little sense what I'm saying, but sometimes life don't make sense, damn it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they can do.
Full boog mode there. Philip Coleman says, picture this, 4th and goal, and we trot out Martner, Brown, King, and Fairweather.
Right. And then you hand it to Jarquez. Because those guys are threats.
Or Robbie pulls it and then runs untouched into the end zone.
Right. Because those guys are threats. They're real threats. So you can just hand it to Jarquez.
Hey, man, again, if you're balanced, you're keeping the defense off balance. They don't know who's getting the ball. So I like that. I love it. I love it. Jamal Cunningham says, I wonder what's up with Stretch. It would seem that he could get some minutes and production from someone who has been in the program for years.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see Johan.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we'll see you. I appreciate that you put money behind this comment. But no, yeah, I think we'll see Johan on the court, and I think they're preparing for him to have a role. But I don't think, short of a bunch of injuries, I don't see game plan with Stretch in it.
It's now time for Johan for sure.
Yeah,
this is going to be some valuable experience for him. Just learning and playing at this point for sure. But yeah, if you haven't seen Stretch at this point, I don't see why you would see him.
They ain't gonna bust him out at tournament time.
No, he's not the secret weapon they've been holding out for. So
yeah, for sure.
Mike G, tell the people what they need to be doing all season.
First of all, just want to thank our title sponsor, auburnsports.com. Our guy, JG Tate, legend, the Commodore, super legend, for sponsoring this segment. You can help sponsor this segment in a way by becoming a patron member and getting yourself a green name. You can also give the gift of the War Report by gifting a membership. If you have been watching our channel and you have not signed up yet, but you interact at a high level, you're most likely to be on the receiving end of one of these memberships. Definitely want to thank our giveaway sponsor, War Eagle Oil, for giving away our t-shirt to our guy in the comments here. War Eagle Oil bringing you guys something every single live stream we give away. Want to thank the Rogue Shop for sponsoring as well. Use code Rapport to get 15% off that Rogue Shop order. Sleep, stress, anxiety, pain. Rogue Shop has what you need there. And last but not least, check us out on podcast. If you missed this in video form and you want to check us out, check us out on podcast. We're on every single podcast platform, bringing you not only the lives, but podcast exclusive content, Mike Mack and Memes, Amen Corner podcast with Ike, our guy Paul Mahari over at Georgia, and some other cats that are doing a great job bringing you guys information over there. So subscribe everywhere. Help us get to 20,000. We're on the chase for 20,000 now, guys. So 10,000 more to go.
As always, man, it's fun to hang out with you guys. Good show, Mike. Great to chat with you about Auburn ball. Guys, do us a favor. You enjoyed this content, share it with others. All right. Don't be stingy. Share this on social. Smash that like button. Help us with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to our channel. Help us get to 20K. That's the new goal. You can find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at The War Rapport. We are TW Rapport on TikTok. That's it for now, guys, but we will definitely catch you the morning drop on Friday. On Friday. So we'll see you then. But until then, and as always, enjoy the SEC tournament. The good guys pull it out on Thursday. War Eagle.
War Eagle.